So I mentioned already the importance of noticing the difference in the feedstocks when we compare the two chemical industries. So for fossil resources, it simply put, crude oil is relatively simple for us as chemists to look at. Its composition isn't overly complex, and it's almost devoid of heteroatoms, whereas biomass contains oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, and all of this means that we lead to a far more complex feedstock, and this has important implications for the sorts of platform molecules that we can produce. So biomass's composition is more complicated than crude oil. Hopefully you're already aware of what are the major constituents within biomass. So polysaccharides really dominate. Some of these will be could be in competition with food, so something like starch, but then you've also got structural polysaccharides such as cellulose, hemicellulose, and maybe even things like chitin from crab shells. There are also then our sugars, our mono and disaccharides, and these very much have competition with food. So this is interesting when we consider the example of Braskem and its production of ethene from biomass, where they currently would grow sugar cane and then extract the sugar from there, convert it to ethanol and dehydrate to ethene. But obviously this does cause issues with competition with food. It's worth bearing in mind this competition with food as well isn't just simply whether the biomass we produce is something we want to eat, but it's also whether we're growing it on land which we might normally use for growing food. Then we have lignin, which is the major aromatic portion of biomass, and it can form quite a large percentage of biomass, but it's actually really quite hard for us to process and to get the aromatics out. Then we've got things like proteins, and then finally we come down to stuff like our extract. So this essentially is all the other stuff. It's in there in biomass. It might be things normally in very low quantities, often in quite complex mixtures, but it's these which can often carry quite a lot of high value as well. And then we know that these are the constituents of biomass, but actually when we're looking at using biomass, it's probably going to be much more complicated, because these are all mixed together, and then also different plant material may be mixed together, and it just further complicates things for us. When we think about trying to categorize and simplify our big list of platform molecules, one of the ways that this is typically done is to actually characterize by the feedstock that we're using, and this is because different feedstocks, different constituents within that biomass will allow us to produce different platform molecules. So it's really important we understand well the makeup of our biomass, because it's that will dictate the sorts of molecules that we can generate from it. And as such, probably as a biorefinery operates, it will do its best to try to separate the constituent parts of biomass prior to producing platform molecules, so it has better control and better selectivity over the platform molecules it produces. So there is a good chance, and certainly a lot of processes out there now actually sort of use lignin and cellulose and possibly hemicellulose and sort of treat it all as one entity. And actually the lignin then typically ends up just being left as a waste product. And so also it's worth bearing in mind with biomass that actually we now have this issue where seasonality and species variation could be something important for us to consider in the future. This isn't the case when we're looking at crude oil. It's already been in the ground for millions of years, and so from summer to winter it doesn't really change. From location to location globally there is some difference, but it's not enormous. It's not the same difference that we would have when we think about our biomass feedstock. So I think this is a great challenge for biorefineries, but already work is ongoing to try to see how you can have a biorefinery operating more effectively throughout the entire of the year.